Number 10. The 1970 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. The 1970 Camaro Z28 took a very different approach to the muscle car formula of its era. While many rivals chased bigger displacement and headline horsepower, Chevrolet focused on balance, control, and real-world performance. This was a muscle car built to feel confident not only in a straight line, but also when the road started twisting. Under the hood, the Camaro Z28 came standard with a high-revving 350 cubic-inch V8. Chevrolet officially listed it at 360 horsepower, a number many enthusiasts have long believed was conservative. What mattered more was the personality. This engine loved to rev, pulling hardest up top and rewarding drivers who knew how to keep it in the power band. In performance terms, a well-sorted 1970 Z28 could run the quarter mile in the low 14-second range, while 0 to 60 miles per hour often arrived in a little over 6 seconds. Those numbers made it a serious contender in 1970, especially considering it wasn't leaning on a massive big block to get there. Where the Z28 truly separated itself was chassis tuning. The suspension felt tighter, the steering felt more precise, and the car generally felt more connected than many heavier competitors. It wasn't just fast, it was the kind of fast that made you want to keep driving after the straight road ended. As for rarity, Z28 production was far lower than base Camaros, which only adds to the long-term appeal when you find one that's clean and correctly optioned. Today, the 1970 Camaro Z28 is remembered as a driver's muscle car, proof that the best cars of the era weren't only about brute force. Number 9. The 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 302. The 1970 Mustang Boss 302 was built with one clear purpose: win where it mattered most, on a road course, not just in a straight line. While plenty of muscle cars in this era were basically engines with headlights, Ford engineered the Boss 302 to feel sharp, stable, and confident when the speed stayed high and the corners kept coming. Under the hood sat a specially developed 302 cubic-inch V8. Ford officially rated it at 290 horsepower, but like many performance cars of the time, that figure was widely viewed as conservative. What owners remembered wasn't a single number on paper, but the way the engine breathed, revved, and pulled with a crisp, eager character that felt more race-bred than most Detroit 5.8 cars on the street. In real-world performance, the Boss 302 could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in the mid-6-second range, and a strong example could run the quarter mile around 14 seconds flat. That's impressive when you remember the mission here was balance, not just maximum torque off idle. This was a car that stayed composed, and that composure translated into speed you could actually use. The chassis is where the Boss earned its reputation. Ford tightened the suspension, sharpened the steering, and built the car to feel planted instead of floaty. On winding back roads, the Boss 302 didn't feel like a compromise. It felt like a muscle car that had learned discipline, the kind that makes you trust the car more with every mile. And it wasn't built in unlimited numbers. The Boss 302 exists because Ford needed to satisfy racing requirements, and that limited production intent still shows in the way enthusiasts talk about it today. It's not just a classic Mustang. It's one of the most respected driver-focused muscle cars of the entire decade. Number 8. The 1970 Buick GSX. The 1970 Buick GSX is the muscle car that often surprises people because it doesn't come from the usual loudest names in the conversation. Buick had a reputation for comfort and quiet strength, and then, almost out of nowhere, it built a street bruiser that could run with the best of them, while still looking classy enough to park in front of a country club. Under the hood, the headline is Buick's 455 cubic inch V8, and the most desirable versions were the Stage 1 setups. Buick officially rated the Stage 1 at around 360 horsepower in the era's gross ratings, but the real story was torque. This engine didn't just rev, it shoved, delivering that deep, effortless surge that makes a big block car feel like it's pulling the road toward itself. In period testing, a strong GSX could run the quarter mile in the low 13-second range, with 0 to 60 miles per hour landing in the 6-second neighborhood. Those are serious golden era numbers, and they're part of why the GSX has earned such a loyal following. It wasn't trying to be flashy like some rivals. It was trying to be devastatingly effective. And then there's the look. The GSX took the clean Buick body and turned it into a statement, with bold striping, functional attitude, and a presence that feels confident instead of cartoonish. It's the kind of design that says, "I don't need to scream to be dangerous." And that vibe still lands with American enthusiasts today. Rarity is a big part of the legend, too. Buick didn't build these in huge numbers, and well-kept, correctly documented cars are hard to find now, especially in the most sought-after configurations. That combination of real performance, real torque, and real scarcity is exactly why the 1970 Buick GSX has climbed from underrated to must-mention in any serious 70s muscle ranking. Number 7. The 1970 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. The 1970 Firebird Trans Am wasn't trying to be the biggest, baddest brute in the parking lot. It was aiming for something more interesting, a muscle car that looked sharp, felt athletic, and could actually make a driver feel confident when the road stopped being straight. Under the hood, the most celebrated setup was Pontiac's 400 cubic inch V8, especially in the higher output Ram Air trims that enthusiasts chase today. Horsepower ratings varied depending on the exact option package, but the real personality was always the same. This engine had a hard-edged sound, quick response, and a pull that felt eager rather than lazy. In period form, a strong Trans Am could run the quarter mile in the mid to low 14-second range and reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in the 6 to 7-second range, depending on gearing and condition. On paper, that might not always beat the nastiest big block monsters. But the Trans Am's advantage showed up when you kept driving, because this car was built to feel planted. The suspension tuning and overall balance made the Trans Am feel more like a driver's car than a straight-line specialty. You sat low, you looked down that long hood, and the whole car felt ready to change direction, without drama. For American fans who love the idea of a muscle car that can do more than launch at a stoplight, that matters. And then there's the image. The Trans Am had a distinct, instantly recognizable attitude, aggressive without looking clumsy. It wasn't just transportation, it was identity. In the 1970s, that mattered almost as much as the stopwatch, and the Trans Am delivered both style and substance. Rarity depends on the exact drivetrain and options, but clean survivors are getting harder to find, especially cars that haven't been heavily modified over the years. That's why values keep rising, and why the 1970 Firebird Trans Am still feels like one of the most American performance cars of the decade. It's fast enough to earn respect, and charismatic enough to be remembered. Number 6. The 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge. The 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge wasn't built to be quiet or subtle. It was Pontiac taking the GTO and turning it into a louder, sharper statement, with bold graphics, an aggressive stance, and the kind of personality that felt made for American streets. Under the hood, the Judge could be ordered with serious V8 power, including the famous Ram Air combinations. Horsepower figures depended on the exact setup, But the bigger story was torque and response. The judge felt eager the moment you rolled into the throttle, and it carried that pull through the mid-range in a way that made the car feel lighter than it looked. In period testing, strong examples were often reported in the mid-5-second range for 0 to 60 miles per hour, with quarter-mile times commonly in the low 14-second bracket when traction and gearing were right. The exact numbers varied, but the experience was consistent. This was a real muscle car that delivered real speed without needing excuses. The judge also stands out because not every GTO was a judge, and not every judge was ordered with the higher performance hardware collectors want today. That makes clean, correctly documented cars harder to find, and part of why values keep moving upward. The best way to describe the GTO judge is simple. It's muscle with attitude, the kind of car that doesn't just drive past you, it announces itself. Number 5. The 1970 Dodge Challenger RT. The 1970 Dodge Challenger RT is one of the best-looking muscle coupes of the era, and it backs up the style with real performance. It sits low, wide, and confident, and it has that classic Mopar presence that makes the car feel fast before it even moves. The RT badge opened the door to serious V8 choices, including big block power that delivered massive torque. Horsepower depended on the exact engine, but the character was always the same. Strong low-end pull, a deep exhaust note, and that heavy, urgent surge when you lean into the gas. In real-world testing, well-equipped Challengers were commonly reported in the mid-6-second range for 0 to 60 miles per hour, with quarter-mile times often landing in the low 14-second bracket, and quicker when everything was dialed in for traction. The Challenger wasn't just quick, it felt dramatic, and that matters in a muscle car. Rarity today is about the right combinations. High-performance RT cars in clean original condition are far harder to find than the average survivor, especially with the right driveline and documentation. The Challenger RT is muscle that looks the part and sounds the part. A car that feels like the era in one silhouette. Number 4. The 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SSLS6. For many American enthusiasts, the 1970 Chevelle SSLS6 is the peak of factory big block muscle. The shape is clean and simple, almost understated, but what's under the hood is anything but. The headline is the LS6, a 454 cubic inch V8 rated at 450 horsepower. Even if you take that number at face value, it's enormous for the time. The real magic is torque. The Chevelle doesn't need to scream to feel fast. It just pushes forward with authority, and it keeps pulling. In period road tests, strong LS6 cars were often reported around 5 seconds for 0 to 60 miles per hour, and the quarter mile commonly in the low 13-second range, with especially strong runs flirting with the high 12-second zone. Numbers varied, but the reputation came from results, not talk. Rarity matters because LS6 cars were expensive, and many were raced hard. That's why clean, documented examples are so valuable today. Survivors feel like time capsules from the last moment before the muscle era changed. The Chevelle SSLS6 is the classic American formula done perfectly. Big engine, usable body, and performance that still feels serious. Number 3. The 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 429. The 1971 Mustang Boss 429 feels different from a typical street muscle car because it comes from racing ambition. This wasn't just a package for bragging rights. It was built around a purpose, and that purpose gave it a special kind of credibility. Under the hood is the Boss 429 V8, rated at 375 horsepower. The number doesn't tell the full story. The engine was designed to breathe at high speed and handle sustained stress, and that engineering intent is why people respect the Boss 429 even decades later. In period performance, examples were commonly reported around the mid-5-second range for 0 to 60 miles per hour, with quarter-mile runs typically in the low 14-second bracket. It wasn't always the quickest off the line compared to the most extreme big-block cars, but it delivered a sense of strength and seriousness that made it feel like a factory-backed weapon. Rarity is a major part of the legend. Production totals were limited, and well-preserved cars with correct documentation have become collector royalty. Number 2. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda is one of the most feared names in muscle car history, and for good reason. It's compact, aggressive, and built around an engine that became a symbol of American excess. That engine is the 426 Hemi 5.8, rated at 425 horsepower. The rating is famous, but what matters is the feeling. The power arrives with a heavy shove, and the car responds like it's always ready to lunge forward. In period testing, strong Hemi Cuda examples were often reported around 5 seconds for 0 to 60 miles per hour, with quarter-mile times commonly in the low 13-second range when traction cooperated. That's serious speed even now, and it was unbelievable back then. But the biggest reason the Hemi Cuda sits near the top of every list is rarity. Certain configurations were produced in very small numbers, and clean originals are treated like artifacts. That's why values can reach into the millions for the right car. The Hemi Cuda represents the peak moment when Detroit was willing to build something almost unreasonable and sell it to the public. Number 1. The 1970 Dodge Charger RT. The 1970 Dodge Charger RT takes number 1 because it delivers the complete muscle car experience. It isn't just fast, it's iconic. The long hood, the sweeping roofline, the wide stance. It looks powerful standing still, and it carries a presence that few cars can match. Engine choices could be serious, including the 440 cubic inch V8, and in rare cases, the 426 Hemi. Horsepower depended on the exact setup, but the Charger's signature was torque and drama. You feel the weight shift, you hear the V8 settle in, and the car surges forward like it means it. Performance times varied by configuration, but strong big-block cars were commonly reported in the 6-second neighborhood for 0 to 60 miles per hour, with quarter-mile runs often in the 13 to 14-second range when everything was right. Maybe it wasn't always the most surgical car on paper, but it was always one of the most memorable in real life. And rarity today is about survivors. Chargers got used up. Finding a clean, correct one is exactly why values keep climbing. For an American audience, the Charger RT is muscle car mythology made real, and that's why it earns the top spot. In the end, my number 1 isn't just a car, it's a feeling. The 1970 Dodge Charger RT takes the top spot because it delivers the full muscle car experience in one hit. A stance that looks fast before the engine even turns, the hard shove of big V8 torque, and a presence that still stops people in their tracks more than 50 years later. Other cars on this list can make strong cases on numbers, rarity, or pure quarter-mile dominance. But if we're talking about the one machine that best captures what American muscle meant in the 1970s, the Charger RT feels like the decade itself. Now I'm handing it to you because this is where the real debate starts. If you could save only one car from this top 10 and the rest disappeared forever, which one are you choosing and why? Don't just drop a name. Give me one reason you'd defend in a room full of car people. Is it the sound, the looks, the quarter mile, the story behind it? Or the car your family wanted but never got to own? Write your answer in the comments, and I'll pin the strongest argument. And if you want more lists like this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Next time we'll go even deeper with head-to-head battles like Chevelle versus Cuda, Boss versus Trans Am, and Big Block Power versus handling cars. I want your pick leading the conversation.